I'll keep this talk slightly shorter than the 30 minutes, just so there's a bit more time perhaps for questions at the end. The approach I'm taking today, you've got a lot of advice from a lot of great speakers, I'm sure, of how to fix the CV, how to do all the details of your job applications. But I think a lot of people forget about what's going on up here in the process and how to actually manage your health, the way you approach, even your mindset, as people mentioned before, being able to have that positive mindset and that growth mindset. It's much easier said than done. So I'm going to focus my talk on perhaps 4 key takeaways that you can hopefully benefit from and apply into your own career journey. By the way, that QR code will take you to my website if you want to connect and learn more about what I do after today. I'm just going to show you a few numbers, and I want you to try and guess, what do they refer to in terms of career transitions, because that's the focus. I understand it's a loud room, so feel free to shout out. There's not many of you here, so you don't need to be shy. What do you think 1/3 or 33% means? What does that number show? Sorry? Not a bad guess. Okay. It's how many of your hours that you're alive that you spend in work or in your jobs on average. So work is pretty important. I know some people say, hey, it's about having fun as well, work-life balance. Yes, I do agree. But at the end of the day, if you're not happy in your job, you're probably not going to be happy in other areas of your life, and, take it out on perhaps people around you when you don't mean to, right? So it's pretty important to give some thought to your career. I'm conscious of time, so I'll perhaps answer some of these myself. 55% is a percent of people who tend to be, in the last consensus done in Ireland, happy in their jobs. Well, okay, that's not a bad percentage, some of you might say. That's nearly half of you in this room. So it's a big deal, right? 82% is the percent of people who have tried to change careers after the age of 45 and been successful. Now, this can talk about many different fields. The reason I'm telling you this is there is hope, there is a chance, it does work, regardless of all the perhaps negative information you might hear. 12, the number of jobs people might have in their lifetime, on average. So changing jobs and changing careers is pretty normal. You might have grown up in an environment where people don't just change their jobs. It's too risky. You've got bills to pay, finances to think about, right? So that makes sense. I'm not telling you after today, I'm not trying to convince you to all consider your careers, by the way, right? That's not what I'm here for. But know that it is normal for a lot of people to be thinking about that. The question is, are you going to be someone who thinks about it, or are you going to be someone who thinks about it and does something about it? 91%, that's the percent of people who chose to leave their careers and go into self-employment. And when asked, would you go back to your original job? 91% people said no. I'm happy I made that choice. It's a big decision, it's risky, but hey, the statistics show it works for a lot of people. Sorry, that's just where I got the data from, in case you wanted to, check yourself. Anyway, let me just focus on the 4 areas today. I'm going to highlight the 4 problems and then 4 strategies or solutions that you could hopefully apply to your own situation. I know you're all in different situations, so not everything will work for every one of you. So hopefully you can take what you need from today. Uncertainty. How do we manage that? How does it work? Well, if you think about it, we have uncertainty in every area of our lives. When you want to change job or career, a lot of it is uncertain, right? And it stops so many people from doing anything. Because it's scary stuff, not knowing whether you're going to have a job in 6 months' time or whether it's enough to pay the bills. But hey, that works in every area of our life, our health. I'm sure most of you in here can't predict when you're going to fall ill someday. It's something that we can't be certain about. Relationships, we can be pretty certain about them one moment, and then a small action can just completely change that and upend it. I won't talk too much about the weather and how uncertain that is, although certain in some ways in Cork. The thing with uncertainty is it has the same bodily response as when you're excited about something. What happens when you're feeling uncertain? What happens in your body? I see some mouths moving, but I can't hear you. I feel like I'm going crazy or deaf. Did you want to say something? What happens when you feel uncertain about something? Some of you are doing this. Your heart beats fast, perhaps. Might find it hard to breathe. Might feel, quite anxious. But in the same way, when you're excited about something, that also happens. The thing is, our body doesn't know the difference. Our mind does. But our body will still react the same way, okay? So sometimes when you want to change something, you want to change it, and you know what you want to go into. You can get that same, maybe it's excitement that you're feeling rather than being afraid. That's what I'm trying to point out. If you all knew what you were going to be doing in the next couple of years, every day, do you think you would be happy? If you could predict that every day for the rest of the day of your life, you know what meals you were going to have, you know what you were going to watch on telly, you just knew every day, would you prefer that, or would you just prefer not knowing? I can't tell from some of your faces. Okay. It is what helps keep us living and trying for things, right? Because if we knew everything and how it was going to go, you'd probably be, oh, I know. Oh, what's the point? I'm going to get sick in 6 months' time. Why should I try and do this? That kind of mentality. Financial stability, I just wanted to mention that because I understand changing jobs, changing careers, because I've done it myself. It's scary being out of work, trying to find a job in a new country, an expensive one, and just not knowing when somebody's going to say yes to you and how long it'll take. And realistically, you can't just say no to jobs that you don't want because you have to pay bills. Okay. And I've had people speak to me today and ask, should I take this job? It's a lower salary than I wanted. But hey, it might not be perfect now, but, people have needs. People have things that they need to pay for. So it might be something that you have to do for now. You were probably expecting a picture there, right? Technology. Another way uncertainty works. So how do we manage it? A few tips that you can look at. You might have seen something like this before. Circle of influence, things that are in your control and things that are not in your control. It might help when you're going about your process of looking for a job is writing down things in this circle that are in your control and those that are not. So if something's in your control, you're much more certain about it, right? Not 100%. But if something's out of your control, it's much harder to be certain about it. So you have to decide, what is it that you can influence? Okay, putting in the best CV. A lot of you have come here today to get help on your CV and application process. That's great. You're giving yourself the best chance you can, right? You'll fix up your CV after today, send it off next week, hopefully get some interview offers. Great. You'll turn up at the interview. You'll interview. You might prepare the best you can and do everything in your control. Prepare questions, prepare good answers, good structure. Get enough sleep the night before, go to your interview. All goes well. Is it all in your control still? No, there's always elements that are never in your control. Their decision on whether to hire you, that will never be in your control. So you can do the best you can and still not get what you want. And that sucks. Rejection hurts. But it's being aware, if you're already prepared for those consequences and how that works, it will help lessen your anxiety. It will help what you're feeling in here. So expect there always to be uncertainty with everything you do, every step of the application process. Just expect that, but work with it. Don't just give up or feel defeated if something just doesn't work out how you predicted. So answering, is it in your control? So interviews particularly. You might look at scenario planning, having a best case scenario, worst case, and then maybe one in the middle. Again, if you plan for this and you give it some thought, it really helps with anxiety and how that works. Anxiety works on your body and your mind having surprises. Humans don't like surprises. We love routine. It's just how our brain likes to work. It likes to be able to know what to expect. So it might help to make a list of just when you're going about your application process and how it might plan out. You might have come across this model before. Whoop. It's a little useful acronym. Again, writing this down can help because it gets it out of here and then it helps you get clarity and see what you need to do. And sometimes that will help make you realize things. So what does it mean? The W is wish. What is it? What is a job that you really hope for? Or a career? O is the outcome. So getting a job in a certain company, or what would be the outcome? Changing a job in the next year or 2 years. I'm not going to say in the next 2 weeks, because that's unrealistic, and that'll make you feel too anxious and put too much pressure on yourself. But it helps to have written it down and to think about exactly how long am I going to give myself. Be realistic. Again, to help with the uncertainty and the control that you do have. Obstacle, you're going to have obstacles. Changing careers is not easy. It's about how you sell yourself and tell people, look, at the end of the day, most jobs are looking for the same skills in everybody. You want someone who can communicate, because if they can't communicate, problems happen. If you've ever been in relationships before, most problems are a result of a lack of communication. I'd say probably 98% of them. Communication, working with other people, even if you don't like other people most of the time and you prefer dogs, sometimes like me, then, it's still a skill that you have to show that you have. because most jobs, you don't just work on your own. You have to work with other people, whether you like them or not. You have to make things work. Anyway, obstacles is to plan what problems you're going to have, because you will have them. So it might be simple as something like, if I don't get a job in the first month, I will. And to just have some kind of plan so you're not feeling overwhelmed with anxiety at the time. If I get rejected from this job, I will. If I don't hear back, if I apply to 50 jobs and I don't get a response, I will change the CV. I will just have some kind of simple plan. And that answers the last part of it. Plan, it just helps to have it written down exactly when you might do things. Because, hey, life gets in the way. Next week, you might have something that happens in your life that just completely throws you off. We can't be certain, right? So we have to remember that kind of thing will happen. And when that does, what are we going to do? Are we going to completely forget about something, a change that we were going to make us much happier? That's what some people do. Because without a plan, it's harder to stay on track. Okay. So, number 2, building a transition team. What does this mean? People, everyone in this room has a sense of belonging and connectedness. It's a need for everybody. It's something that humans were built to. It's increased their survival back in the day. You wouldn't last if you were just on your own and tried to do everything by yourself. It is a bit easier nowadays, but it's still not the same. They argue now with research that being on your own has a similar effect on your body as smoking 15 to 20 cigarettes a day. So people are important. We need others. We need people to rely on. So what can this look like? Well, yeah, career changes. If you're changing jobs, you might have a lot of friends in your job, okay? But it doesn't mean that when you move away that they'll all stop being your friends. But you might have those thoughts, right? So it's about being aware and to help you prepare by managing your expectations. Being able to, so then again, this can lead to thought, being isolated, especially if you've been in that job for a long time, right? The other problem is, another fact rather, 85% of jobs are actually filled through networking and people knowing other people. So this is another reason it's good to meet people and know people. Again, thank you all for coming today because you've made the decision to try and speak to other people. This is networking. It might be uncomfortable at times, but it can be part of the process. Helping others feels good, right? It actually releases chemicals in your body, serotonin, that helps you. So when you help someone, you actually feel better off for doing it, and it's actually good for your health to help others, even if you don't like to help people. Asking for help builds trust in others because they think that, okay, you came to me for a problem, you trust me to be able to help you. If you never ask other people for help, it's harder to build that and earn that trust. So what might this look like exactly for you? Oh, another thing there, just helping professions are often the most rewarding for a lot of people. I'm not saying that'll be the case for all of you, but that's why they tend to be rewarding, because helping people feels good. What can your team look like? Perhaps reach out to someone that you know who has changed jobs or careers in their lives, made a big change. they'll be the best person to go to first to try and just find out how did they go about it? How did they manage their anxiety, their uncertainty? What things did they do to improve their chances of success? Even if it's a completely different career to what you want to go into, you're not asking for specific advice on a type of company or what to put on your CV, though that can be helpful. But you can help for how did they manage it, like manage everything else rather than the CV, because the CV is just one part of the whole process. Oh, sorry, and yeah, attend networking events, things like these. Great job for coming today. Again, keep doing things like these so you can just use, I won't say use people around you, but be able to benefit from asking for tips, advice, making connections. A lot of you are in the same situation, perhaps, so, you know, it's good to be able to support each other. You'll at least understand what it's like in here to go through the whole process. So that can be helpful knowing that. And finally, using platforms like LinkedIn. Some people have come to me today and said, I don't know what LinkedIn is. And I tried to describe it as social networking, but for jobs-ish. It's just a way to be able to meet people in the field outside of things like Facebook. Especially if you work remotely or if you work in remote areas where you don't get to see a lot of people every day. Come into Jobs Expos, they're not that regular. So you might not be able to have these opportunities so much. LinkedIn provides a great platform for that because you can find out about different events like these. Dealing with fear and confidence. So I'm cautious of the time there. I said I wouldn't talk for too long. Confidence and fear, these are big aspects that are going on in the whole process. I want to just draw your attention to this model. It's pretty straightforward, even though it looks pretty ugly. When we hope for things that will happen, we end up fearing that they won't. Right? So you hope so much that you'll get a job in the next 2 months. At the same time, you have the fear that if you don't get the job in the next 2 months, what will happen to me? Right? And the same way it can work in the opposite is true. If you hope something won't happen, I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow, you actually might have the fear of it actually raining. If we apply this to jobs, right? Decide on why you're deciding to change careers. So I won't ask you to give honest answers now, but let's say, who in here is thinking of leaving a job because they don't like their manager? I'll just go by a little wink in case they're here today. No. Do you think choosing to change career because you don't like something is a hope response or a fear response? I'm hoping you're thinking fear. Which one do you think is more useful for your mindset? Hope is a bit more useful in terms of your mindset. So I want you to see it as when you're changing jobs, look for reasons to run towards another job rather than run away from a current job, if that makes sense. If your only reason for changing career is because you don't like something and it's a fear response, it's going to be much harder to keep the mindset up here in the whole process, and you're much more likely to give up. So a hope response, what might that look like? I want to go into a new job because I want to have opportunities for people to pay for me to do further study. That's one of the reasons I chose my current job, actually, is I'm training to be a psychotherapist, by the way, and In some companies, you can ask them to pay for your studies. They won't all say yes. Mine haven't said yes yet, but when interviewing them, it was one of the questions I asked. So being able to look for opportunities there, and overall, going for a hope response. Look for reasons that you want a job and want to go into a job or a career, rather than why you don't want your current job. I'm hoping that makes sense. Okay, and just quickly about confidence. How does confidence work? I made this triangle to help you try and understand it a bit more. And it might help to have 3 different views on how confidence works. We've got self-advocacy. That just means your ability to speak up for yourself and say, not afraid to say, I can do this. I am worth this. And that is your motivation. That's whether you will give up or not. Then we have self-efficacy. Skills that you have and how much practice and experience in a job. That affects your confidence. And then finally, we have perspective. I would say this is the one that most people tend to lack, that I found through my own career coaching. A lot of people in this room are really well qualified. And some people might rush to do extra qualifications first, right? But that's sometimes not the right way. Some people have tons of experience. And going into a new job, yes, that is going to be useful. But it's how they call them transferable skills, is how you transfer that information and make it a skill that they will need in that job. So being able to navigate those. And perspective, again, that's the idea with the hope, instead of fear. Being able to see the situation from a different way. Again, having a transition team, people to speak to, they can help you find perspective. If you try and do it on your own, you might struggle to get that perspective. If it's missing, unfortunately, that's when your confidence starts. You start questioning and doubting your confidence. Okay, just moving on to my last point there. So changing our identity. When you change jobs, perhaps it's a job you've had for 20, 30 years, and it is an important part of who you are, right? So it's a big change. So try not to underestimate it. Just to help you understand what I mean by self-identity, I've tried to break it into 4 main areas. Where you are now, and how that determines who you are, your future. Some of you may want to change careers completely, and you might be worried about that changes how other people see you. But don't let that be a reason for you to not make that change. Your past. Oh, I've always been a waiter, or I've always been a teacher. That's all I know. That's all I know how to do. So they're not changing because, or maybe my parents told me, that's what you should do. And then just basing decisions on that. These are all different aspects that change your identity. And it changes over time. So that's what I want you to make aware of. Oh, sorry about that. Your identity comes from different aspects. Your job, the friends you have, any communities or any religious groups that you're part of, they all form your identity. And even your beliefs that you have. So how can we look at changing these? It really helps to self-reflect. This is some of the work that I do with my clients, and what we do is, it might be something as simple as just asking these questions here. Just for the sake of time and finishing up shortly, you might just ask these questions. These questions are very common in psychotherapy, and if ever anyone has ever been, you might have come across them. Especially CBT. where your beliefs come from. It's good to be able to start to see why do I think like that? Where did I get that idea from? Because it might not be a belief that's helpful for you now. Maybe when you were younger, you didn't know what to do in the situation. And that's how you learned to cope. But it doesn't mean it's a good coping strategy when you're an adult. When you're younger and you don't like, if any of you have children and they don't like something, you make dinner for them and then they don't like it, what do? Do they tell you or not? They would probably tell you and probably just be like, no, that's horrible. I don't like that. I don't want that. They're not afraid to say that, right? Have you ever had adults round for dinner, cooked something, and then they turn around and do they do the same? No, they don't. Right? But we do the same in so many areas of our lives. We act like kids up here because when we were younger, saying no, I don't want something, that helped you. That helps your parents know, okay, they don't like that. Don't give them that again. It's helpful at that time. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm not saying do that now, moving forward. But it helps to be able to see, okay, where did I get this from? Is that still helping me now? Okay, so just to review what I've been talking about today, because I think I've come to my end of my time. We looked at 4 things. Managing uncertainty. Life is uncertain and it will continue to be uncertain. In terms of jobs and careers, you could argue it will be even more uncertain in the next 5 years, especially with AI. I'm not trying to scare you, but the reality is you're not getting rid of that uncertainty. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't change a job that you've wanted to change for a year, 2 years, maybe even longer. Those feelings aren't going to go away, right? Applying for jobs and not knowing the answers, that's always going to be uncertain to you. But should that stop you doing it? No. You still have to try and trust in the process and have faith in yourself. Teams, we need people to help us. You're not going to be able to do this on your own. If you do, fair play to you. Well done. But it'll be much harder, right? You need someone to just be able to bounce ideas off, see what it's like. Find someone you know who changed jobs or careers. See what it was like for them. Hope and confidence. So think about hope instead of fear responses. If you're looking to change careers, find a reason that is hopeful rather than fearful, because it will help your mindset. Confidence, we've got, I won't get you to shout out. Self-advocacy, so your worth, perspective, and what was the other one? Self-efficacy, was someone saying? Yeah. So it's just beliefs about yourself, okay? And identity change. Don't be afraid. I know it might make it harder to make that choice to change careers. People will still like you, even when you've changed jobs. It won't be the end of the world, okay? Thank you for listening today. If you want to know more about the work I do, I made this little animation video on YouTube that will capture a lot of what I've been saying today about hope. Feel free to book a coaching session with me. And I specialize in career transitions, particularly mental health behind it. And I'm currently in training to be a psychotherapist. So I provide more of the counseling support than I do coaching as well, but I also specialize in that. Lovely to meet you. If you have any questions.
James McIntyre Ure, anyone? If you've got any questions.